strangers in dispensaries, they're like, oh, I want to grow. I'm like, follow me. I've got plenty of seeds that I would give, clones to give away. Uh, and any question, you can just DM me and ask, and I'll give you the rundown. I'll give you the list of supplies based on your budget. I like getting people into growing because like it was so much fun for me, and they say growing weed is the gateway drug to gardening.
Hello and welcome to Here in LA, Highland Park edition. Today we talk with Willy Christie. Willy is a brand ambassador, a musician, and a man who grows some incredible buds. In our 75th-ish episodes, we've had the pleasure of hosting a couple of journalists who specialize in weed and shrooms. We've had a cannabis podcaster, and now we've got a guy who used to drive a truck full of cash and edibles from the border to the Central Coast, who now creates some delicious strains. Don't ask me how I know. Willy is also the main man in the band Kukuni, which, if you play your cards right, you might hear throughout this podcast. So here he is, Willy Christie. Hey everybody, I am in Highland Park with Willy Christie.
How's it going?
Willy, thank you for letting me into your beautiful home.
Of course.
We have two cats here. What are your cats' names?
We got Champa and we got Block. Come here, Champa. Champa's a Siamese, Block's black, and they're brothers.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, Willy, we are here for a couple reasons. First of all, you live in Highland Park, which is awesome. How long have you lived here?
I moved in here October of 2020. So it's been just about 2 years now.
What brought you to Highland Park?
I wanted to move to the east side. I'd done West Hollywood, I'd done Mid-City and Echo Park, and the person I was dating at the time knew somebody that lived here. And so we just checked out the spot, and it was a good price, and I got the little backyard, and which is important to me because I grow weed and I garden and stuff. So I was just like, I'm into this, and yeah, fell in love with the neighborhood really quickly.
When you know that you're going to grow weed in the backyard of a place you're renting, do you have to ask the landlord if it's cool?
Maybe.
Did you ask?
No, no.
Has the landlord seen your setup?
No, he hasn't. And I mean, to be fair, from the backyard, it's the legal amount. You're allowed to have like 6 flowering plants, something like that. So even if he were to see it, I'm pretty sure it's all gravy legally, because it's a contained yard. It's got 4 walls, which I think is really the main thing. And just out of safety, this is a back house, so like the front, you can't see it from the street. So that would be the other concern, is besides being legal, I just don't want people walking into my yard and messing with or taking my plants. So it's a pretty secluded spot, and yeah, I'm a pretty good tenant, like for part of that is because I don't want him coming out here and just, oh, what's all this about? I think if anybody were to come, knock down the door or something, they'd see like, okay, this is clearly not a money-making operation. This is clearly just some weird dude's hobby.
And I've gone to tons of houses. Everybody's got a hobby. And okay, so we're in your living room right now, and I see a drum set. I see a couple guitars. Is that a keyboard over there? What do they call that?
Yeah, it's a MIDI keyboard.
A MIDI keyboard that connects probably to your computer, and you produce music. That's another reason that we're going to talk today.
Yeah.
Is you've got a new album that came out. What's your album called?
It's eponymous, Kukuni by Kukuni.
Okay. We'll get to the music in a second.
Yeah.
Let's continue with the weed for a second. Where are you from?
I'm from Kansas. Born in Overland Park, basically. I honestly forget. Kansas City, Kansas, and then I grew up in Overland Park, basically.
When did you come to LA?
July of 2016, so 6 years ago.
Okay. What brought you out here?
I mean, Kansas is still one of 3 states where marijuana is 100% illegal.
Really?
Not decriminalized, not anything. So that was a big reason, because I was growing in Kansas. I'd found I loved weed, and I hated waiting in parking lots for dealers, and there were legitimate droughts, and it cost a lot of money. So I figured I might as well start growing it myself. And then after doing that for a couple years, just the stress of anytime somebody knocked on the door unannounced, I'm like, that's it. That's it. That's the end. I'm going to jail for 5 years at least.
You say weed is expensive out there. How much is an eighth in Kansas?
60 for the eighth of mids. Like
really,
you're not getting very good weed.
And so the price is that high in part because it truly is illegal. It's dangerous for people to deal, if you want to call it dealing.
Exactly.
And so they pass on that to the customer.
Exactly. Yeah. There's, I mean, and the thing is too, is there's nowhere really to get it. You're either getting it from a grower in Kansas that's also risking their livelihood by doing it. So yeah, the price, and then, the guy you get it from got it from somebody else, and they're marking it up, and it just $60 an eighth really, especially if you're smoking a lot, just is not sustainable, especially in Kansas where minimum wage is pretty sure it's still $7.25.
Whew.
Yeah.
So you've got to work a whole day for a little bag of weed.
Exactly. That you could also smoke in that same day. If you have a couple friends like that, it goes by fast.
Right. Okay, so you moved to LA in 2016. Mm-hmm. What did you think?
This is funny. I drove out here, spent some time in Denver. Weed was legal there. I had some friends there. And I'll never forget pulling in off of the 10, heading towards West Hollywood, where my best friend stayed. And I saw that there's like a Shell on the corner of, it's like Beverly or something in West Hollywood. It's like the only gas station in miles, and it was $4.99 for gas for years. When it was probably $2-3 everywhere else in the city, but that was the first gas station I saw, and I was just like, I'm not gonna make this. I can't survive. Flash forward 6 years later, gas is more expensive than that, but 6 years ago, I was like, I did not foresee this. Like, what is this? And, but then, fell in love, got in the weed industry, got to smoke real California weed, got my first band in 3 days. It was I met a girl on Craigslist. We started a band together and a relationship, which I don't recommend. But it was all going really well. And that's when I got my first weed, proper taxed weed job,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You worked at a dispensary?
I worked for a company called Venice Cookie Company, and they did Cannabis Quencher, 420 bar, a lot of, I think Cannabis Quencher still exists and is in multiple states now, I believe, but the rest of that company doesn't exist anymore. But I was B2B delivery driver, so I didn't really talk with people. I just carried, tens of thousands of dollars of product and cash back and forth from dispensaries back to the headquarters.
Wow.
Yeah.
Were you ever nervous that they weren't going to pay you?
I didn't have to worry about that. If they didn't have the money, I'd just call my manager and be like, they don't have the money. Next stop. But the real worry was like, there's some spots in Anaheim where it's like 7 armed guards, and some places it's pretty obvious when you pull up with a truck and you're unloading a bunch of product that there's a lot of money in there. And so but I didn't know. I didn't really consider, because again, coming from Kansas, you don't deal with real mentally ill people or real desperately poor people that are willing to do crazy things for money. And so I was kind of naively doing this for a while until there were a couple days where it's security guards would escort me into the building and stuff, and that's when I kind of started putting it together. I'm like, oh yeah, this is dangerous.
Mm-hmm. So you would drive home with tens of thousands of dollars of cash?
I drove to the headquarters. They would not let me go. I couldn't take that home. It was a company car. I'd go to the headquarters and then drive the van around from San Luis Obispo and higher down to basically Mexico, like the last border town that had some dispensaries too that we were in. So I was all the way out to Inland Empire, Palm Springs. And that was fun too, because I got to see Southern California. I got to see that. It was like, I think 4 or 5 months of driving all up and down the 5 and all around the city. And yeah, I just, coming from Kansas again, there's no mountains there, it's all flat. So every day was just beautiful, just seeing San Luis Obispo in the spring, green hills, just mountainous hills. Really, I mean, it's a beautiful state. I still, if you can look out my window and see the mountains right there with the clouds, like it's still, it hasn't gotten old after 6 years.
But while you're driving though, there's drugs and cash. What was the largest amount of cash that you had in your truck at one point? Was it $100,000?
I don't think so. I want to say like 60, 70 maybe. Because these places are putting in orders for 8 to 10,000 seem to be about the average, because they would stock up. Because then they're making money on that money, and I would have 6, 7, 8 stops a day, so it would add up.
Did you have a safe? Did you have a lockbox?
No.
Where'd you put all this cash?
It was just in a one of those money zip things, just a little zip. Sometimes I'd get paid in 1s and 5s, and I had to verify it, like just counting it out. Sometimes it would take 10 minutes just to count the money that they had, paid me in. But yeah, it was just in a little clipboard, the top comes off clipboard with like a little,
nothing fancy.
Those leather money envelopes, that you see at like garage sales and stuff. It was, not much security on there. And
so when you would get back to the warehouse, you'd hand over the cash. They would count it to make sure you didn't steal any. But I mean, looking at you, you seem like a wholesome, normal dude.
Yeah.
It looks like almost everything you're wearing is thrifted.
Yeah.
What your corduroy hat says "Don't trip."
Yeah, I just found out this is a Mac Miller brand or something that he sported. I didn't really listen.
You
to
got
his
black socks on with weed on them. You look like just a normal person. I wouldn't think that. Well, I'll put it this way: you look like a normal hipster.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think that you've got 60 grand in a truck.
Exactly. Yeah, and that worked to my advantage too. Like, I was the only white dude doing that job also. Everybody else was Latino, Hispanic. I got trained by this one guy who was involved with, he'd go down to Tijuana and party. He played in a mariachi band. He'd party till 4:30 in the morning and have to be back in Culver City by 7 a.m. And, he had his ulterior vices to stay awake for those drives, which, I understood that, because when you're on the road, no matter what you have in it, just being on the road 8 hours a day, it's different. You can't go to work sleepy. You cannot afford to be sleepy. Late nights, like I'd done my whole life, just stay up. Okay, I'll just be tired today. You cannot do that when you're driving, because that's your life. That's your life, somebody else's life. And he offered me meth, like while he's training me, he's like, "You want to try some of this?" And I'm just like, this is not the time. This is not where I want to do meth for the first time. I did not move out to California, join a weed industry to start doing meth. Like, there's plenty of that in Kansas, believe me.
So what'd you do to stay awake?
I learned that when you're tired, it's too late to drink coffee. But like the caffeine will actually block your sleepy chemicals in your brain, but it doesn't refresh them. So you just have to stay ahead of it. And I learned about this crazy thing called a coffee nap. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. So it takes about 15, 20 minutes for something you drink to enter your bloodstream. And so what you do is if you are exhausted, if you are actually tired, falling asleep, you chug a coffee or a, espresso, frappuccino, whatever, chug it and take a 15-minute nap. So that 15-minute nap gets rid of all the sleepy chemicals blocking your receptors, and the caffeine is there, ready. As soon as you wake up, the caffeine's hitting, and you're refreshed and awake and alert. So it was like weird, like military tactics almost,
Okay, let's talk about your weed. You don't sell this weed. You're really just experimenting. You're being a scientist back here.
I gift to friends, like it. I work in the industry, so I have a lot of friends that smoke, and sometimes what I'm offering, the weed that I have, is like higher quality and cheaper, and at the very least, you're not paying 30% tax, and all the money's going to me, and it's just, I always say, like, support your local artists. Like, thank you for supporting your local artists, because that's the reality of it. It is an art to me, and I'm finding that the better I get as I figure it out, people do respond to it. Like, my girlfriend, for example, will not smoke dispensary weed. She can't. It makes her feel anxious and uncomfortable, but her and now all of her friends are like, I only get weed from Willy. Like,
I thought that the one of the things about legalized weed in California was it gets tagged from the beginning, and the government and the growers are tracking it all the way to the dispensary, and because of that, it's supposed to be better. But you're saying your backyard weed is better.
Yeah.
How is it better?
I mean, granted, there are brands that do it better. There are brands with integrity where profit is not the most important thing, where they actually do care. I'll shout out 710 Labs right now. Their slogan, their motto is quality over everything, And so, like, I wouldn't say that I'm growing better weed than, a handful of brands, but the majority, I would argue 90 to maybe 95% of the weed in dispensaries doesn't hold a candle. And that's just because they're growing for profit, mass-produced weed grown hydroponically. So it's just, the terpenes get diluted. It's only focused on THC content, which, as a lot of us know, like, is not the most important thing. You don't buy Everclear at a liquor store. You don't buy alcohol based on alcohol percentage unless you're just trying to get drunk, but a lot of people, if you want to get high, you can just buy a vape pen, but people want flower with the highest THC percentage. I don't know. So the brands cater to that, and it's just created this mess of like dry, flavorless cannabis. And granted, it does have a lot of THC, but THC on its own creates dysphoria. You think that THC is like a euphoric thing, but it's really the terpenes that kind of modulate that high into something that's euphoric or feel good or energetic or relaxing, because THC on its own is actually kind of unpleasant.
Tell me about it. I was going through a period where I couldn't smoke because it made me cough, and a friend of mine gave me 100% THC tincture. And she said, only take one drop. I took the one drop and didn't do a lot. So the next day I took 2 drops and I collapsed.
Wow.
Yes, THC by itself isn't the thing. Just like we don't drink rubbing alcohol.
Exactly.
Let me ask you. Oh, so your Instagram is really interesting. What's your handle on Instagram?
I have my personal's my name, Willy Christie. But then I have a weed one, Willhouse69. That's because Willhouse 420 was taken.
And on this, you did something that I hadn't seen before, which was, I want to say you rinsed or cleaned your buds.
Yeah.
What do you call it? Rinsing?
Yeah. Rinse, wash,
You washed them. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And what was interesting to me about that was I didn't think you needed to. But when you did it, you showed how much gunk is on these buds.
Yeah.
And we don't want that gunk inside of us?
Not necessarily. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, I have cats too, and the tent used to be in the living room. So it was dust, the same dust that's gathering on the table and counters, that's going in the weed plants too. And those are sticky plants too. So like, there was a dog living here, a big hairy golden retriever. So like, and then there's bugs, like bug carcasses, bug poop. There's a lot of stuff. It started initially because I got powdery mildew on a plant a couple years ago, and I was just looking at ways to remedy that because I was like, it's just on some of the outer leaves. How do I get rid of it? And this guy, Jorge Cervantes, who's like, I don't think that's his real name. He used to, because back in the day, you couldn't put yourself out there as a weed authority. You just get, asking to get raided. But it's this white, I'm pretty sure he's a white guy, but he called himself Jorge Cervantes. And he wrote the Marijuana Grow Bible. I might be messing up the title of that, but it's like horticulture, marijuana horticulture, I think the Grower's Guide to Cannabis or something like that. So I already kind of knew him as like an authority. That was how I started. That's how I learned to build my first grow room and start growing weed. And so he has a YouTube video on hydrogen peroxide diluted in water, because the hydrogen peroxide will neutralize the powdery mildew spores and also a lot of other stuff too. It just kind of, sterilizes slightly. And so he's showing this video of dipping a freshly harvested weed plant into water, the hydrogen peroxide diluted water, and then 2 more, rinse stations. And yeah, it seems very counterintuitive because the last thing you want to do is get this plant wet. Isn't it going to get moldy, or isn't it going to like get wilty, but apparently if you do it right when you harvest it before it starts drying, it can actually, not only does it create a smoother smoke because you're getting rid of any dust, allergens, bugs, insects, hair, all that stuff, but it also, I find it helps slow the dry a little bit, which is key to getting a smooth smoke too, is the slow and low temps and as slow as possible. So I felt that I found that also helped. It actually made my weed better. I would argue no drawbacks. I have yet to have mold pop up in my jars because it's always usually too dry. And so I still have yet, and I've been pushing it, putting pretty fresh weed into jars, not pretty fresh, but like 10-day dry, whatever. Still haven't had mold yet. So I will vouch for rinsing your weed, and it is a bizarre technique. It is counterintuitive.
But it seems like it works.
Whatever
works, right?
It does work.
Okay, you're obviously way advanced, which I appreciate, and we could talk about this all day, but I can't really drive my listeners to buy your stuff because you don't really sell it, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you can do this then. I'm sure that there's a lot of people who would love to grow their own weed.
Yes.
But maybe they've tried and failed once before, or they're just nervous, or they think it's really complicated. Mm-hmm. I watched some videos of growers in Oregon where you can only have, I think, 5 or 6 plants, and they're like, well, then we're going to make the biggest plants of all.
Yeah, yeah.
And they had incredible soil. I think they went to an actual farm and talked to the farmer and got real cow poop that was fresh. Mm-hmm. They put these chemicals in it that oxidized it or whatever it was. It was a whole science experiment. I do not have time for that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people do. And even though we can be nerdy about our little hobbies, my hobby is getting high and watching a movie. Mm-hmm. It's not doing all the things.
Yep.
So for those of us who do have your little backyard is little. Mm-hmm. That's the size of a bedroom back there.
Exactly.
It's not that huge. And yet you're growing fruits. You've got a number of different plants out there. What's some of your advice for people who want to grow in their backyard?
Keep it simple. Don't be afraid to kill it. I think even still to this day, overwatering tends to be the biggest killer of plants because people have the best intentions. They're like, I'm not going to neglect it. I'm going to water it every day. And you just don't have to. Weed is just like a tomato plant. And for those of you that don't grow tomato plants either, stay tuned. But for now, if you can grow a tomato plant, you can absolutely grow a weed plant. I would argue, these plants are very resilient. It is technically a weed. It grows wildly in a lot of places, so it does not require that much. They can go very droopy from being dry, and you water them and they'll perk right back up. It is a lot simpler than you think. And I give clones out to my friends and say, like, just kill it. Don't worry about it. Like, don't be afraid to kill it. Just have fun with it.
Okay, so I don't water it every day.
Mm-hmm.
Every third day?
The plant doesn't know what day it is. All the plant knows is what's going on in its pot. You just have to learn, maybe let the soil dry out a little bit, and you'll learn quickly. Like, the soil can get dry enough and the plant still looks healthy. You can maybe let it go another day. It's once the leaves start drooping and it's dry, because they will also droop when it's overwatered. That's the dangerous thing. So if your soil is dry and your plant is drooping, most likely it could use water.
Okay.
That's obviously if you have, I recommend cloth pots, because those are way harder to overwater.
I have no idea what a cloth pot is.
It's a fabric container that you put the soil in.
I can get this at Home Depot, or
I believe so.
Okay.
Amazon has them. Grow stores will have them. They're so $1 to $3 per pot. It's very affordable.
What kind of soil should I be using?
I did Fox Farm Ocean Forest for 10 years. It's every weed forum would always recommend that. I have done.
Hold on. Fox Farm Ocean Forest. Mm-hmm. Sounds very hippie.
Yeah, it is.
How much for a bag of, what is that, 10 pounds?
I couldn't tell you how many pounds, but
like
the
potato
large
sack.
Exactly. The potato sack, I think it's like 3.5 cubic feet or something like that.
Uh-huh.
Anywhere from, there's a grow supply store out here that sells them for 11.
When you say out here, you mean in Highland Park?
In California, there's a chain, Green Coast Hydroponics. There's a couple around LA, $11 plus tax.
Since we're talking about Highland Park,
mm-hmm.
Are there weed supply stores here?
There's one right on Eagle Rock called Sunland, which is not, we're not in Sunland, but it's Sunland Hydroponics or Hydro or Grow Supply, something like that. But Sunland on Eagle Rock, their Fox Farm is like $15-$16. So you're anywhere from $15 to $20 expect to spend.
So a couple bucks for the cloth pot,
mm-hmm.
$15 for the dirt. I come to you to get a clone, but if I don't know you, I can go to dispensaries now and get clones. How much do they run there? Do you know?
About $20 a clone.
$20. And so what am I in? About $50.
Mm-hmm.
Should I use anything to keep the bugs away?
That's a good question. I like to use peppermint oil and Dr. Bronner's soap in water, and you can just get a little. If you have one or two plants, a hand pump sprayer, like a Windex bottle type of thing. It's like a tablespoon of dish soap and a milliliter or two of peppermint oil, and that'll keep away spider mites, thrips, a lot of the main ones. Some people, and what I'm probably going to do this next year is you can put a little net. It's like a greenhouse, but it's just a butterfly net or something. That'll keep a lot of the bugs from getting in there in the first place. But yeah, bugs, that's just a learning process,
Mm-hmm.
But the best way to do it is to stay ahead of it. If you're just checking your leaves for any weird bites or anything and spraying that peppermint oil and soap mixture every 3-4 days at night or in the morning. If you do it in the middle of the day, the droplets from the spray will it creates a magnifying glass effect and for the sun, and it just burns. It will burn the leaves.
I feel like we have fewer. I'm from Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we have a lot fewer bugs in California than in the Midwest. Is that true?
That's true for now, but California, yeah, it's been getting worse. I don't know what it is. I feel like I managed to find a lot of bugs, because I've got a little green little zone out here that stays pretty moist. So the bugs probably are coming from miles being like, yo, I heard this guy, like, check this out. It's free food everywhere.
Your Instagram, do you go through these steps about how to tend to your... Not really.
Not necessarily. Yeah, like some days I'll do educational stuff, but I there are so many accounts that have like basic growing info.
Okay.
But one thing I do when I'm out working, I do brand ambassador work, so I'm still in dispensaries talking to people every day. And I offer my services for free for now, for the foreseeable future. I still have time. Follow Willhouse69 and reach out. Like strangers in dispensaries, they're like, oh, I want to grow. I'm like, follow me. I've got plenty of seeds that I would give, clones to give away. And any question, you can just DM me and ask, and I'll give you the rundown. I'll give you the list of supplies based on your budget. I like getting people into growing because like it was so much fun for me. And they say growing weed is the gateway drug to gardening. Like once you start growing that plant, you're like, shoot, what other plants can I grow? It's a pretty good. It changed my life, so I feel like it's sort of my duty to pass it on. And yeah, it's also kind of selfish because like I want grow buddies. I want people that are growing with me so we can like trade clones and cross strains together. And I'm going out of town. Can you come over and water my plants? So it's good to have a little community of growers too.
And there must be something special about smoking your own weed.
There is. I don't know what it is, on a physical, scientific level. I know that maybe it's just a small amount of plants I'm able to look and take care and diagnose and pamper these plants because it's, small scale, small batch, artisanal grow style. But I can't help but think that there is something in the energy that I put into these plants too. Like I want them to be good. I care for them. Some of them are my own strains that I've created. And there's a lot of love that goes into that. And I feel like that, and it's all organic because like, I'm going to smoke this. Why would I do anything that I wouldn't want to put into my body?
You say that you've made some of your own strains.
Mm-hmm.
Have you made any cool names for these strains?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'll start with the first one. I got a bag seed of this strain called, it was a bag seed off of a strain called Rainbow Driver. And so being a bag seed, it's a mystery dad, mystery male plant. So I can pretty much name it whatever I want. So I called it Rainbow Road. Not legal because I'm sure there's some copyright with Nintendo in there.
Rainbow Road?
Uh-huh.
What Nintendo game is this?
Mario Kart. It's the last big course on Mario Kart 64. It's like, and it's perfect for weed too because it's just this psychedelic. You're literally driving on a rainbow and stars are the guardrails and you're literally driving around in space on a psychedelic rainbow. Yeah, it's a great. So coming from a strain called Rainbow Driver, I was like, why didn't they just call it Rainbow Road?
There you go. Because they're probably old like I am and they have no idea.
That's true. And so I crossed that, or I didn't do it on purpose. I had a male GDP, Granddaddy Purple, in the tent, got a little too wild, and next thing I know, I had a bunch of seeds, and I call that Purple Rainbow, kind of an homage to Prince, like Purple Rain, Purple Rainbow. And then, so I crossed my Purple Rainbow with another seed that I got from a friend that's from a breeder. Apparently, I always forget the name of the breeder, but it's a Mac and Slurricane hybrid. And this plant came out just smelling like grape jelly. I've got it. I got it in the closet in there. I can have you smell it. But it smells like buttery grape cobbler pie. And my best friend Charlie, who we're both from Kansas, but he's been out here for 8 years. He's actually a huge Cubs fan too. His dad's from Chicago. And I stayed with him in West Hollywood the first year that I lived here. He's black. He taught me how to play the blues, and he loves grape weed. And so I named this strain Chuck's Berry.
Oh my God. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. And he's got a chronic pain disorder. So he's prescribed opiates, but he doesn't like taking them because they're very addictive. He's been, he's had his up and down with opiates throughout his life, but he still has to take them. So this strain that I made for him, weed has always been his like safe. He's like, if I could just find the right strain to replace this, I would. And so I'm kind of working on that. Like, he's done so much for me over the years that it's the least I can do to kind of, and this strain, cultivar is the proper term. Strain is, that's the common language, but this cultivar really does give a full body relaxation, a full body high. And that was just kind of the bonus. I just did it because it smelled grapey, but turns out maybe it's that grape smell that causes the full body high. And that's why he likes grape weed, is because it actually gives him the medical relief that he needs. And so that's the newest strain that I've come up with that I'm really proud of the name and how it turned out.
I love it. Let me turn on my phone because I want to talk to you about music.
Okay, awesome.
Oh, there's another keyboard over there. You have a real keyboard.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you play all these instruments?
Uh-huh.
You play the drums. I see an acoustic, an electric. Mm-hmm. You got a keyboard. Well, first let me ask you about your new record.
Mm-hmm.
Kukuni.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like a made-up name, but I Googled it, and it means a Cub fan that podcasts. No. What does it mean?
It is a made-up word.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay.
I misheard somebody on the radio. I was listening to NPR, and they said, he's like, it's similar to the concept of cocooning. And I was just like, I love like the concept of, there's like this Japanese concept of forest bathing, that if you're stressed, you go out into the forest and breathe in the pine air, which, to bring it back to weed, the pinene that are in cannabis and in pine trees entering your bloodstream through your lungs just by breathing it actually refreshes and relaxes and makes you more alert. And so like, I'm ready to hear this like cool new concept, and he just goes on, and I'm like, oh, he said cocooning, like, pretty self-evident, like just kind of pandemic cocooning, you just stay in your little cocoon and kind of have your own little world. And that's exactly what I was doing for this project already.
Right. I heard you stayed in this house?
It was a spot in Mid-City.
Okay, so you stayed in Mid-City for 6 months straight?
Yeah, essentially. I worked. I would go to work, but 90% of my free time was, I set a deadline, 6 months out. I'm like, I broke it down into 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks I need to have a song kind of thing.
Oh.
And so I just stayed, and I think I wrote 13 songs and whittled it down to 10 by the time the album was done. But yeah, I wrote that. It was just me in this tiny bedroom. Is about the size of this section where I'm sitting right now, just like a 10 by 8 bedroom or something. I could be wrong, but
did you have your girlfriend
tiny.
at the time? You don't
think
remember?
I was
there
single.
was a woman in this?
I was single.
All right, fine.
I was single, which helps.
It does help. Sorry to say, but it does.
Yeah.
Okay. your music, I drive Uber. I start around 4 o'clock in the morning if I'm a good boy. Sometimes 6 o'clock if I sleep in. And from 6 to around 9, I don't like to play rock and roll for my passengers. I like to go to the chill station on Sirius XM. And I'm a rock and roll person. AC/DC was my first concert, and everything else that's less than that is less than that.
Which singer?
This was the Back in Black tour, so it was Brian.
Gotcha.
And so when I heard the first couple cuts off of Kukuni, I was like, oh, great. And I just put it on the background and I did my work. I was like, I'm just gonna let it be here, and we're gonna see if anything pops out. My man, something popped out. You have a song called Forever.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of a groove, a real slow groove, a bit of a stony groove, if you will, with, like, there's some reverb going on in there. What's the technical term? It's even on the drums. It's almost like a phalange sound.
Yeah, it's definitely a big plate reverb, if I'm not mistaken.
It's called a plate reverb.
I believe so.
Okay.
When I initially did it, because I wrote the demos, I did, fleshed out probably 80-90% of this album. I was going to release it myself, and I realized that the quality of the songs just weren't up to par with my songwriting for the first time in 10 years. So I found a producer. I'd worked with him for my last band, and we were kind of working on a couple of the tracks already, just because he liked what I was doing, and he was offering me free studio time, which is a blessing. So I was already kind of working with this guy, and then I was like, you know what, I need to get this thing done professionally. So a lot of the like super technical stuff about the finished record, I can't be sure, but I can tell you what I did for the demo. And it was a lot of just plate reverb. I just kind of envisioned this song as existing in, like, you're a rock guy, Rush, the 2112. That the song where the protagonist discovers the guitar behind the waterfall.
Yes.
That sort of timeless, almost like Grecian, like kind of like open. You don't know if it's a cave or if it's a, a massive open like room, but like there's this, that I love that tone. I love that emotion. And so I just feel like that's a spot that I return to a lot internally. Like when I'm on psychedelics, or, when I'm like just really introspective, or just trying to visualize a space to record, or what is the ideal spot to record this. And it's almost always that like big open cave with a waterfall, and maybe like the sun's coming through the waterfall into the room type of thing. And so I was trying to just emulate that environment, and so just a lot of big open reverb happening.
What's the line that I'm falling in love with on this? Forever is what?
Because forever doesn't feel like forever when you're in it. It feels like a dream. I wrote that song in Kansas, actually. That's the oldest song on the record.
How about that?
Yeah, I wrote that song in, I think, 2015, maybe early 2016, and I just never had the lyrics for it. I loved the melody and the lilting, kind of bluesy, sort of reminded me of like Japanese video games take on Western music, because I grew up playing like Zelda and all those video games. So like, it just kind of had this like cartoony Western feel to it, but not cartoony in a bad way, but in more like a fantasy Western. And I just never had the lyrics. I never had the lyrics right. I wasn't happy with the mumble take lyrics, and it used to be like, 'cause you'll never fall asleep with your lover, just like, just came out on first take, and I just kind of went with it. And then the album I was writing, and I was getting near the end, and I was like, let's see if there's any older ideas that I can revisit. Pulled that one out, and the lyrics just clicked, and I knew that I had something that I was really proud of, and that actually had like really transcendental meaning to it. And so I was able to go from there, and I feel really good about that. And Tony, the producer, he
what's his last name?
Buchan.
Tony Buchan.
Shout
out Tony.
Big shout out
for giving
to Tony.
you a lot of free space to create this.
It was really flattering too, because like he would do wonders, for my tracks. And then some of the tracks, he's like, he hated soft synths, like the software synths where it's just a plugin that's modeled after a Prophet or a Juno. But almost every time he'd ask like, is this another soft synth? And he's just like, damn it, man. Like these sound really good. He's like, so some of the tracks he would keep 80% of my synth work in there, which was like really flattering, because I expect to go into the studio and redo almost anything just with his better gear, better recording equipment. So it was really flattering to like know that a lot of this work that I'd put in was staying. And that track specifically, the guitar, I don't remember if we re-recorded the guitar. I just recorded it sitting at my desk, going into the interface, into the built-in microphones on my Zoom R16, shitty multi-track interface. And it was stuff like that. He'd be like, this is good. We got to keep this. And I was like, this is for sure the one thing I was expecting to re-record.
Right. Let's talk about Zorillo.
Yeah.
Is that how you say it?
Zorillo.
Zorillo. What does it mean?
It is Spanish for skunk. So I think, you put that together.
Do we want our weed to smell like skunk?
Yes. Yeah. There's actually a study that came out in 2019 that all this talk about terpenes may not be, like, there's no skunk terpene. There's no terpene in cannabis. There's no specifically terpene. There is a chemical in cannabis that gives it the skunk smell, but it is not terpenes. It's a class of sulfur thiols that are analogous to garlic sulfur compounds, which are good for the heart and good for the body, but they're unique to cannabis. They actually discovered like 4 or 5 new compounds that are unique to cannabis, and that is what imparts the skunky, gassy, essentially all the stuff that when you smell weed, you're like, I want the dank, gassy, skunky stuff. It's actually the sulfur thiols. And an interesting side note, if you put fully cannabis-derived terpenes in front of a drug dog, it will not respond. So it's actually responding to the sulfur thiols. That's the skunky smell is what the dogs are trained on.
I would love to do this experiment one day. Zorillo, you recorded recently live at where?
At the Goldfish in Highland Park, formerly known as the Hi-Hat.
Is that on York?
It is.
Okay. So I saw your live video of that, and no disrespect, but when I heard it on the album, it was totally different for me in that I could hear I just could hear it better. And maybe the YouTube video is just a guy on his iPhone recording you.
That's exactly what it is.
And that's going to lose a lot of the nuances. The recorded version was the second song that I really liked. And this is not my world. This is not the kind of music that I'm going to go out to Walmart and play in my pickup truck.
Yeah.
I'm gonna play it if I'm on ecstasy. I'm gonna play it if somehow I've wooed an EDM girl back to the place, and we're kind of mellowing out a little bit. Yeah. Is that the intent of your music?
Yeah, there was a Facebook group back in the day, and I think there was a last.fm group back in the day that was, and it's probably borrowed from something else, maybe some like Hunter S. Thompson quote or Kurt Vonnegut, I don't know, but it's like music made by people taking drugs to take drugs to, something like that, you know? And I will say, like, a lot of weed went into the recording of this album. I was, I'd write something sober, like if I was singing, I'd try to stay sober to stay tight. But for a lot of the creative process, thinking, lyric writing, re-listening with fresh ears or a new perspective, it's like you can get a second opinion real quick if you just smoke a bowl, get really high, and listen to it again. It can be more efficient that way instead of having to wait another day with fresh ears. You can at least get an idea, because there's the trope of the other way where you just smoke a bunch of weed, write a song, and then you listen to it sober the next day and you're just like, oh, what was I doing there? So I tried to keep a balance of real, sober listening versus high listening, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I was very stoned for the creation and editing process for a lot of that album.
Tony, the producer, is he getting high too, or is he a sober gentleman?
A little bit. Like he didn't really smoke. Definitely not in the studio, because I'm sure it would just be, it would just get more chaotic and less organized. He has his workflow, and as soon as you get high, you just get stuck on a synth. You're just like, whoa, we should just write another song right now. It's like, no, we got to finish this one. That's what weed keeps you playing, but you got it. There's a lot of work involved too.
Where can we hear you play again soon?
We're taking a break right now. Our drummer Mike is, he had to schedule just some minor surgery, so he's out for a couple weeks in
Which
December.
Which makes sense. We're heading into the holidays, and a lot of bands don't want to play during the holidays, because the fans are busy.
Mm-hmm. They're out of town.
Yeah.
They're broke because they just spent money on Christmas presents.
But we can expect to see you guys in the future.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, and the band once again is
Kukuni. Kuku. Kukuni.
Okay, let's wrap it up with Highland Park. You've been here for a little while now.
Mm-hmm.
You have not been cocooning in Highland Park. You've been out and about, I imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Where are some of your favorite places here?
Oh, man. I'll start with Via's Tacos. Via's Tacos, it is... is today Tuesday?
Yeah.
You might want to swing by. If they're there, they're open on Taco Tuesdays. I don't know where they were at before the pandemic, because we moved here. But my brother, who's really good about finding new spots, it's this house. It started out, he was selling out of his grandpa's house just a block away. On our way to York, we would walk past his house, and he'd be selling tacos. And my brother just had him one day and came back and was like, dude, you have to try these. And sure enough, it's a blue corn tortilla with cheese caramelized on top, and then there's beautifully, I think it's all hickory smoked meat. They've got asada, they've got pollo chicken, and then they also have these phenomenal papas tacos, like potato tacos, diced finely, like tiny little cube. Diced is an improper term because I think it's supposed to be the size of a die. These are like smaller than a pea cube of potatoes, so you get all the caramelization on every single, the surface area is all crispy in these potatoes, and guac's always free. Hibiscus pickled onions as a garnish.
So this is Via's Tacos on York?
It is on York now. Now they do a pop-up on York, Taco Tuesdays, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday from 4 to 11 or
York
something.
Near where?
York, across the street from the Goldfish, actually. 52nd, right around 52nd in York.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It is. They won LA Taco Madness back-to-back now. First person ever, first taco company to ever win it back-to-back.
How about that? Where do you like to hang out?
Here, honestly. I don't drink too often, but there's the Hermosillo is a really, that's on 53rd in York, maybe. really cool. They've got really cool bar. They do some food. They have some natural wine on the menu, a really good beer list, and a nice little outdoor patio area that's dog friendly. That's a cool spot. Then there's Johnny's, which is just a nice dive bar. And
some people might resist coming here because they think it's over gentrified. It's too expensive to live here. What would you say about that?
I'd agree. I would definitely agree with them. It is expensive to live here. I, fortunately, knock on wood, haven't had the rent go up since I moved here. I like to think it's because I'm just a good tenant. I don't call for anything. I pay my rent on time, and I'm not throwing parties and getting noise complaints.
In part because you want to keep cool.
Yeah.
Because of what you're up to.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
But the drums have got to be loud, though.
Yeah, I got medium sticks, and as you see, there's T-shirts covering. You know, I could buy proper.
You got some pillows, I imagine, in your bass drum.
There's a blanket in there. I need to fit a pillow in there. So I play during the day only. But my neighbors are really cool. The guy in the front, him and I, he's been here for about a year and a half. Him and I are cool.
Do you give him weed?
He doesn't smoke.
What?
Yeah. He doesn't care, and he knows if he ever needs any, he can come to me.
He does now.
Yeah.
I saw an old Asian lady sweeping.
Yeah.
Is she cool with your music?
She hasn't said anything. She's a sweetheart. She'll give me. She is also a garden inspiration. I don't know if you saw their backyard. They've got sugarcane, pomelo, persimmon, tangerine, mandarin.
Are the mandarins I saw some big ass
fruit. Those are the pomelos.
Pomelos.
Or pomelo.
I don't even know what that is. It looked like a grapefruit almost.
It's like a grapefruit lemon hybrid, but it is its own citrus apparently. Like it's not a hybridized variety. It is just a giant citrus, and it's dry kind of. Like you can actually open it up and separate it into the citrus segments. And you eat it, and it's kind of like a dry grapefruit, but it's less tart. It's way less tart than a grapefruit. It's a really unique citrus. Like, I don't know. It's not very flavorful, but it's refreshing, and it's slightly sweet. It's kind of like a sweet grapefruit with a hint of lemon, maybe. But they're massive. They look like it looks like a basketball. There's like 100 basketballs growing on this tree. But they're green.
So she's cool with you too.
Yeah, she's awesome.
So the neighbors are great. The neighbors are great. You're in walking distance of great tacos. Do you ever take the Gold Line?
No, I don't.
Right, fine.
I don't.
With all this fruit that's being grown back here, are there any rodents that invade?
That's a good question. For some reason, poor Jim in the front seems to there's like a rat in his basement every other month or something.
No.
Yeah,
hold on. He's got a basement over there?
It's not a base. It's like there's like just a crawl space underneath both of our houses.
I see.
And he just always has like a rat in there for some reason. I don't know if it's because my cats scare him away, or if maybe he's just got more enticing fruits and vegetables going on over at his place. Or it's just luck. But yeah, I haven't had to deal with anything rodent wise. Like there's maybe a rat or two that runs around. But there's feral cats and neighborhood cats that come around here too. So I think they keep them. There's a family of possums that lives back there.
The possums don't mess with your weed?
No.
Thank God.
Yeah, no, they don't. And the rats don't mess with them either.
Let me ask you about fireworks and cops. Highland Park is known for fireworks, but I feel like during the pandemic, everybody in LA had to mellow out because the southern border was closed, and I have a feeling that's where most of the good fireworks came from.
Yeah.
Did you hear a lot of fireworks this 4th of July?
Not really. Honestly, that's it. I didn't even think about that. Because when I stayed in Echo Park, my God, it wasn't even 4th of July. It would be like, it could be September 2nd, and you'd hear firework, like it was just nonstop in Echo Park, just dudes in alleyways lighting off a huge firework and then running. Yeah, but out here, I would say what you'd expect being
Right.
in a city of, millions of people. Like,
Yeah.
the numbers are like, yeah, anyone could be lighting up a firework any minute. There's enough people.
It might kick back in next summer.
Yeah.
What about the police helicopters? Do you get a lot of helicopters in Highland Park?
There's a decent amount, but again, the neighborhood is significantly safer than it was a decade ago from what I'm living here. I'm a white dude that's growing weed in his yard. I'm very thin. I'm not a scary looking guy. But the neighborhood seems to be a lot safer. It's a lot of families. There's definitely like the mid 30s, late 30s, 40s, like programmer looking yuppie types that have their 5-year-old kids. But honestly, I feel like, my neighborhood especially, it's a lot of just Latino families, Asian families, like families. So and the streets are clean. That's one thing. There's no street sweeping out here because people aren't throwing trash in the streets, I guess. Like, yeah, so I don't have to worry about parking tickets on the street or anything.
Let me ask you about your dreams, Willie, because I'm older than you, and I'm a little worried about you. Because this music is beautiful, but I don't see you becoming a millionaire off of it. Your weed is probably very good, but you have kind of my sensibility, which is I don't want to get rich off of it. I want to make cool shit and give it to my friends.
Exactly.
That's like such a Midwestern come from.
It must be, yeah. Just the humble, like, oh, I don't need much.
We're not here to kill anybody. We're just here to just be cool and be the cool neighbor in the back.
Exactly.
Is that your dream, or do you have some aspiration? For example, if the New York Times decided to buy this podcast for me, I would accept their money. If you call it 710 Farms,
710 Labs, yeah,
or Tegrity Farms in South Park, if they came to you and said, that grape thing that you've got, the Charlie Berry, what did you call it?
Chuck's Berry.
Chuck's Berry. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Do you have bigger aspirations for your weed that you could do that the rest of your life?
Yeah, these are both, I live my life, my career has always been my plan B. Most people, their hobby and their dreams are their plan B. For me, it's music and weed. I don't need much. Like you said, I don't need $1 million. I just need $4,000 a month or, for the time being. Like, it's a very modest amount. And music, I find that, like, the amount of work that actually goes into making money on music is not the type of work, it's not making music, So I'd rather just keep making music until it's just kind of undeniably good. And then then everything will fall in line, versus going out of my way to, just paying promotional advertisements and pushing out this album, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's not the type of work that I like doing. That's not the type of work I've ever liked doing or done. So maybe it's naive, but I have the faith that, like, if I just keep writing music, it's going to get better and better. And so maybe then something will happen, but I'm really happy where I'm at musically speaking. Weed, on the other hand, I am pushing a little bit harder to kind of get some money on. I'm working with some business partners on getting my own strains in their brand and eventually starting my own brand, hopefully sometime next year. And that's like a money-making thing, but also, like, after working in the industry for 6 years, I see a couple holes that could be filled, just integrity being the main, integrity, like, literally, but non-ironically and
right.
Fully transparently, like, having a weed brand with integrity coming from somebody that has 13 years of cultivation experience and a genuine passion for the plant, I just feel like I want to at least try, see if there is a market for what I think is important about weed. So that there is stuff in the works for me on the weed end, just happening slowly. And again, I've been doing this music and weed thing for 13, 14 years, maybe more now. And so like I've been doing it for free this whole time. I'm in no rush. I've got my day job, which is a weed industry thing, and that lends to the experience, that the market experience that I will need for my own brand. So I'm making all the mistakes and learning all the things not to do from other companies on their dime, which is always a good business strategy.
Let me ask you about, we'll wrap it up with this. How do you ingest your weed for the most part? Is what you're holding there, a bong?
Yep.
Just a plain old normal bong, glass bong.
Yeah, glass bong. Sometimes I'll roll up a joint. If I, that's usually post-harvest. I got a lot and I can just blow through it. But my tolerance is pretty low for somebody that's really, a big part of their life revolves around weed. My tolerance is like, if I'm smoking during the day, and going into the night, two bowls, maybe 3, depending. But most of the time I'll smoke like half a bowl a night. I'll take 2 to 3 to 4 bong rips while I'm playing video games or watching movies or TV. And that's about the extent of it. So yeah, I don't.
Do you have a daytime strain and a nighttime strain?
Yeah, I do. But when I grow, it's like anymore, I find that I can smoke indicas during the day just as long as I smoke a little bit, just smaller amounts of indica.
I ask because that gives me a headache sometimes. Does that for you too?
No, it's more just sleepiness for me. It's more
just get
like,
sleepy.
Yeah, like that's what I try to avoid. But even good sativas, the energetic stuff that's supposed to keep you focused, like the company I work for has a strain that's a quote sativa that tests at like 37% pretty consistently. I can't smoke a bowl of that during the day. I will, I get tired. I really
37% THC.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the company?
Yeah, they're THC Design. They've been really good.
It's called THC Design. That's who you're the brand ambassador for?
Yeah, currently.
Where can we get THC Designed?
They're everywhere. They're one of the biggest brands.
In Highland Park, where can we go?
Neela Road, Northeast LA. Neela Road, I think it's on like 59th or 60th in York, something just down the street. They're carried there. Pasadena, there's a bunch of shops in Pasadena too, but Highland Park, Neela Road is also a new neighborhood dispensary.
A brand ambassador bops around to these different dispensaries and gives samples to the bud tenders and answers questions. Is that how it goes?
Basically, the sales reps tend to give samples because now being legal, the whole giving people free weed because it has to be taxed and traced. It's a different method. But yeah, I like to give them, if I get a bunch of THC Design weed from work, I can't smoke it all. And honestly, like, I prefer my weed to it. So I give out this weed and it's my own personal stash, which I don't think a lot of people are doing. But I'll give the bud tenders, oh, you haven't tried that one yet? Here, I literally have, a quarter of it back at home, and it's going to go old before I get to it anyway. So Here, try some of that. But most of the time, I'm like the lady in Costco giving out the samples with the coupons, except it no longer samples. It's just, hey, you buy our product, you'll get another joint, or you'll get an extra couple grams, or sometimes buy one, get one. So I'm just like, and I'm there just to educate on the brand, which, I know I'm really good at that. Like, I know how the company works, and it's basically THC Design is like the middle of the road, like highest quality, consistent weed for the best price. Like they're not trying to be the best of the best. They're trying to be the best for like the most people. They're trying to just be like that Coca-Cola of weed, kind of, not the Bud Light or Marlboro, but like more like, But not even Coca-Cola, because we all know Coca-Cola is not good for you really in any shape or form.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
Because when I get sleepy, I go to McDonald's and I get today I got a McRib on the way over here and a Coke.
Yeah.
And that keeps me awake.
That's a good point. Okay, so the caffeine, you're right. I was thinking more just like the soda or the sugar.
Just to sip on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
No. I did that as a child, and I developed kidney stones.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me.
Which got me into the opium because they gave me Demerol.
Yeah, oh, shit. Whoa.
And I was like, I understand.
My mother's love in a pill. Like, what
and
else
then I was
could I
asleep.
want? Yeah.
Hey, Willy, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for having me today.
Of course.
Where can people find you online?
We're so Kukuni Music on Instagram, Kukuni, Kukuni Music. You can follow me on Instagram as well because I always cross promote. Kukuni is on pretty much every platform: Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, whatever.
Ooh, you're on Tidal?
Uh-huh.
Beyonce could get you?
I believe so, and YouTube Music too.
Your album cover, you look a little different in person. On this album cover, you have a little mustache going. You're dressed very nicely, and you're looking at a mirror, which is looking at the audience.
And it's right there.
Oh, is that the mirror right there?
The mirror.
Which those of us who hallucinate just stay away from mirrors, right?
Yeah.
And you kind of look like a world traveler a little bit in this picture. Today you look like the guy who I'm going to bump into at the bowling alley.
Yeah, literally.
Which is fine. Which of these personalities is more like you?
Well, I had the mustache. I shaved it for Halloween. I've had that thing for 14 years. I haven't shaved my mustache since I could grow it, basically. So I just shaved the mustache for the first time a couple weeks ago.
So we can expect you in a mustache in the future.
I think so. I'm still weighing it out,
You look great either way.
Thank you. It's up to the girlfriend, whatever she likes more, because I don't look at myself in the mirror enough anyways. So like whatever she likes more, that's, she'll either mustache or not mustache. Maybe a nasty goatee, like that would probably be an ironic goatee. But yeah, I think that I do have two separate sides. I've got the side of me that isn't showered. I'm wearing, clothes I wore a couple days in a row. And then there's like the time to present myself, fully shaved, got some rings on, got the cologne on, freshly showered with the product in the hair. So I've got two sides of me, and that might be my Gemini moon. Is
that what it is?
It could be. I feel like I have...
Let's end on this.
Yeah.
I try to get all the senses. Your cologne is...
It's this random fig patchouli cologne that I got at a farmer's market. I traded a plant that I was selling at the time, Kokedama plant, for the fig patchouli cologne that... I barely use it, so that was 4 years ago, and the bottle still looks full for the most part.
So, ladies, he's taken for now.
Yeah.
But if you want to smell what Willy smells like, fig patchouli.
Fig patchouli. I forget. I don't even know the brand. They might even not exist
Just
anymore.
mix a little fig patchouli with some skunk weed, and that's probably what you smell like.
Honestly, my girlfriend Missy literally... She's like, you always smell like pepper. It's like old weed because it just permeates my clothes. That was when the grow tent was in the living room. So I'm hoping that is a thing of the past. But I used to always just smell like weed constantly.
Willy, thank you so much for hosting us.
Thank you, Tony.
And we'll see you out in the rock and roll hi-hat.
It sounds good.
How great was Willy? You know who we'd share our sweet buds with if we had a backyard in which we could grow the legal amount? Our Patreons. When you stoke us, you're saying, Tony, Jordan, look what I found in my sofa cushions. So shout out to our Patreons, Nancy Rommelman, Sean Atlow, Matt Mills, Sean Wallace, Greg and Molly, Jamie Taylor, Mark Johnson, Kira Ann, Barney Granke, Ben Welsh, Jen Adams, Trevor Wilson, Bree Wild, Dougie Gyro, Christina Up North, Robin Carey, Adam Shorn, and Ben from Down Under. Want to support this fine podcast that features beautiful souls like Willy? Go to patreon.com/hereinla and give till it hurts. We're also on the lookout for cool guests. If you know somebody, tell somebody, and then tell that person to write me at busblog@gmail.com. Also shout out to our Angelinos. To be an Angelino, all you got to do is PayPal or Venmo, $25 or more, and we will list you in the Here in LA website or Medium blog forever. Just send your hard-earned cash to busblog@gmail.com. Want to support us, but you got debts no honest man could pay? You can still help. Post your favorite episodes on your Facebook. OMG, post too. Tweet something nice about us. In fact, anytime you see me tweet about an episode, help out a brother. It's the holidays. Just retweet it. Just go bleep, retweet, bleep, retweet, quote tweet. This is rad. And for God's sake, tell your friends. Tell them how Here in LA is spelled. It's on Apple Podcasts and Google and Spotify and Amazon. Here in LA is produced by myself, Tony Pierce, and a man who I gave half of what Willie gave me, Jordan Katz. Editing, mixing, and music supervision by Jordan Katz. Songs by Orgone, Jordan Katz, and Kukuni. Special thanks to Cindy for creating the logo, Jen for inspiring this, and backyard bombardiers everywhere who share what they've learned.
Smoke weed every day.